So today I'd like to talk to you about fundraisers for nonprofits. There are several different types of fundraisers, and as I go through them, you will probably realize that you've been to a million of them yourself. But it's important to understand why some types of fundraisers are a good idea for a nonprofit that you're involved with and why others might not be. And I'd like to give you something to chew on as far as the bigger sense of how a fundraiser should really fit into your nonprofit. It's all well and good to plan a race or an event and people show up and you cross your fingers and hope that at the end of the day you're going to come out with a profit. But there's a lot more to it, not just in terms of the planning of the event, of which there is a lot, but also in terms of how a fundraiser can reflect on the quality and type of your organization. So I hope to help you eliminate some bad ideas and maybe think about some new ideas that maybe you wouldn't have considered otherwise. So first of all, why have a fundraiser? And you're saying that if I don't know the answer to that, then why are you watching me? I do know the answer to that. But it's more than just having a fundraiser to get donations to your organization. There are reasons to have a fundraiser beyond that. So engagement. Engagement means when somebody comes to your organization to participate in different ways, and that person then is someone who your organization has made a connection with, which is valuable. So you are engaging people as attendees, if it's an event, as donors, as volunteers who are going to work at your event, because pretty much every type of fundraiser involves volunteers. They might be other organizations, they might be for-profit communities, companies that you engage as sponsors or participants. So there's lots of different stakeholders who will join you in your fundraiser, and it's really important to make them feel good about having done so. Building excitement about your organization. So especially when an organization is young or is in a phase of trying to grow, it's great to have a buzz. It's great to have an excitement about what your organization is doing. So a fundraiser can really help with that kind of thing. It also gives volunteers a way to participate that makes them feel energized and feel strongly about supporting your organization. It will make donors feel great about supporting an organization because they will hopefully attend or they will make a donation, and you can send them pictures or videos, or they can watch it on Facebook, live or something like that, where they can feel like they are physically, if not there, then they are connected to your organization. So there's lots of great benefits to having a fundraiser that aren't necessarily that financial return on investment. So there's sort of a matrix when it comes to thinking about whether to have a certain kind of fundraiser or not. And on one axis, I would say is how easy it is to plan and how much is a fundraiser going to cost. And then the other one is sort of your return on investment, your ROI. And so you want to try to have a fundraiser that's going to have a good return on investment in all of those areas I talked about, and also is going to maybe not be the most complicated, difficult, time-intensive, labor-intensive, financially intensive event. So every time you consider having a fundraiser, I want you to think about that matrix and where your concept for a fundraiser would fall. Different types of organizations would probably consider different types of fundraisers. So for example, every weekend in probably your community, unless there's 10 feet of snow, someone's having a walk or a run. They're just ubiquitous. But certain kind of organizations might not want to have that. It might not be appropriate. If the people that you serve through your organization are not ambulatory, it might not be appropriate to have a walk or a run. If like I said, the weather where you are is there's 10 feet of snow 10 months of the year, a walk or a run, unless you like to run in the snow, a lot of people do, then, that might not be appropriate. So it's important to consider, is this fundraiser appropriate? In addition to walks and runs, other types of events. I'm going to kind of group a bunch of them together. So that would be anything from a humongous gala in a ballroom with famous speakers and everybody is dressed to the nines, to a parlor meeting in someone's home with 20 guests. That could be a carnival. Almost every school, at least that, my kids went to, had a carnival when the kids were little, and those were fundraisers for the schools. It could be a concert, some kind of a show, that kind of thing. The pros to that kind of fundraiser would be that it builds relationships. People show up. Generally, there is a physical event and people show up. They have time to network with each other, with your volunteers, with you, with your board, and it just creates a nice sense of camaraderie. Also, events generally will generate a good amount of, if you do it right, marketing and PR. So hopefully, if you have those type of events, you will be putting maybe flyers and posters, but also you'll be writing a press release and putting it on your Facebook page, and maybe doing a little Facebook Live video during the event, and certainly afterwards putting up photos on your website. So you can really squeeze a lot of good marketing, PR, love out of an event, a fundraising event. The cons would be that events are generally very high on that scale of the dis-ease of planning and cost in terms of both labor and finances. So you need people with expertise, you need money, and it's a lot of moving parts. So certainly if you're having any kind of event and you want to look around at your volunteers, your board, see who you can engage who's done this before. You definitely don't need to reinvent the wheel on this. There are people who, this is their job, and, maybe you can get somebody to donate their time in exchange for you, including them, as a thank you to them in your program, if you can't afford to actually pay them. There are ways to barter for a lot of things that you need. But if you're, and I'm going to come back to this at the end when I give you my general caveats, but if you're not going to do it right, don't do it. So you might want to start small and see how something goes in terms of an event. And then next year, if it went well, you learn from your mistakes and you can maybe make it a little bit larger, try something a little bit bigger, a little bit grander. Maybe something small works for you. And that could engender, a lot of really great feelings by some kind of an intimate gathering. Okay. Sale of materials. That would be something that you do a sale of t-shirts or hats or other kind of merchandise, coffee mugs with your logo on them, things like that. The good thing about that kind of a fundraiser is that if you find the right vendor, that can be very easy. I have done those where I've identified vendors that specialize in doing this for nonprofits. They make it so easy for you, and I have not had to touch the merchandise. I don't order t-shirts in different sizes and hope that someone's going to buy them, and then I need to mail them out and I need to pay postage, and then I'm left sitting on 400 t-shirts and I'm wondering what to do with. I won't do it if that's the case. So I know better than to not do something if I'm not going to do it well in terms of that kind of a fundraiser. So you can find companies that will help you to do this properly. The company that we've been using here actually will allow people to make donations on top of the purchase of t-shirts that we've been selling. And then they will allow people also to make comments. So people give positive feedback about the organization, and then that posts to our Facebook page, which is amazing because we get people who we haven't heard from. They're not necessarily our members or people who are in our system, but they want to buy a t-shirt. They hear about a t-shirt, and now all of a sudden we have a way to connect with them. We have a way to thank them. And then maybe we can send them, some more information about our organization. And then the next thing you know, maybe they want to be a volunteer and they're engaged. So that's, in a perfect world, that's how it works. The cons are that, like I said, if you can't do it right, you shouldn't do it. You would need someone to probably design. If you don't have a logo, you need the artwork to be, camera ready or to be of a certain file, a certain size. You might need a designer if you don't have, the graphic the way you want it. It doesn't, that kind of a fundraiser also doesn't engage a ton of volunteers. There's not a whole bunch of outreach other than what I was talking about with the people purchasing it. So it's not like I've got all these volunteers who are working on this, who feel great about it. Of course, the people who do buy the shirts and they wear them, and we get people to take pictures of them and send them into us. So we make as much of it as we possibly can. And it depends what your goals are in terms of how much money you're trying to raise. But I can tell you that this has been, the past few years, it's been a 5-figure fundraiser. So it's been great. Something like a sweepstakes or a silent auction or some other kind of an auction is a different type of a fundraiser, where people might buy tickets to hopefully win a prize or make a bid. The pro for that is that it could be very easy to do if you can find people to donate the items. This is something you could probably do on your website. Even if you don't have a very sophisticated website, you can have people email you bids, that kind of thing. So it can be done all virtually. It can be done as a component of a event. A lot of times, you're invited to some kind of fundraiser, and then they have a table out with baskets, and you make a silent bid, and either you win the basket or you don't, or they draw a ticket, and if your number matches up, you win the basket. So that would be a component of an event, but it is a different type of fundraiser. The cons to that is that you have to have someone to donate all those items to you. If you got to go out and buy all that stuff, and then you're hoping that you're going to have to have people bid on it much, much higher, that's not a position you want to be in. That doesn't make any sense to me. So you would want to have all of those connections for sure before you go, okay, let's have a silent auction. You want to know that you got good stuff that people want. To me also, I don't know. I don't get that jazzed about it as when I attend those events, winning those baskets. The baskets to me aren't things I want. I think you need to make sure that you have things that the people who are coming to your event or are going to go to your website and bid, if there's not an event and it's just the auction or sweepstakes, are going to really, really want. If you have a bunch of, just junk and stuff, I don't know. I think that would be something where it doesn't make your organization look good to have just a bunch of schlock. A signature fundraiser. This is something that I think at a certain point, and this is important, so I want you to really think about this. At a certain point, many organizations, not all of them because it's not appropriate for all organizations, many organizations will want to establish a signature fundraiser. And you will know exactly what I mean when I say Ice Bucket Challenge. The ALS Foundation tapped into, and I have no idea whose brainstorm this was, but the concept of the Ice Bucket Challenge was brilliant because people wanted to participate, whether or not they even cared about the ALS Foundation or supporting ALS research or people with ALS. Every man, woman, and child, at least in the States that I know of, I don't know if it went international, wanted to try this Ice Bucket Challenge because it was funny, it was fun, you got to call somebody else out and say, okay, now I challenge you. And then people started making donations as well when they did that. Not everybody made a donation, but the PR, the reach, the engagement, it was millions of dollars, millions of people. Now, clearly the ALS Foundation is a well-established organization. I don't really know too much about them, but this was pure genius. I haven't seen it repeated since then, which is curious to me because I think that now it's been several years. Maybe they've been waiting, because I'm going to talk about that later on. You don't necessarily want to have your idea get old or tired, because then that doesn't look good for your organization. But it hasn't been repeated, and I feel like it was several years ago, and I think it would be fun if they would do something like that again. But I think if you can come up with something that people can feel like that about, that people, whether they have, the disease of the people you are serving, or they care about your cause that your organization serves, that they would want to participate is awesome. Even if it's only people within your sphere of influence currently, but if they could be really that excited and feel really that good about, it was also something very fun and lighthearted, and that's something, that made everybody just, it was a good time. And I'm jealous of whoever thought about that, because they deserve like 10 gold stars. Okay, so return on investment. I talked about the curve, the axis, the vertical axis being, the difficulty of creating this event, and the expense of it in terms of all kinds of the money, and that you need of volunteers, and how much time it's going to take for your staff and your volunteers and your board, and then the horizontal, I guess that's the X, and that's the Y. That's the X, would be return on investment, your ROI. So we talk about ROI differently with nonprofit than we do with for-profit. At least I do, because in for-profit, it's very clear cut. That return on investment means how much money are you bringing in. And with a fundraiser, you do need to think about how much money you're bringing in. First of all, if you don't have a financial goal for your fundraiser, stop. That should be the first thing. Even if you have no idea, just put your heads together and come up with a financial goal. You just should have some sort of bar that you want to achieve. So yes, you want to make back certainly any financial investment you made in an event, and you want to raise money on top of that. But there's other ROI factors. So that would be how many people you engaged, your attendance, things like that. So those are your return. The engendering of good feeling towards your organization, the participation by other organizations or for-profit companies or sponsors that you engaged. Are you doing sponsorships with this event? Did they feel good about it? So that's all of your fits into your ROI. I think there are certain things, some caveats and things to think about when you're deciding on doing a fundraiser. So I went over, does it make sense for your organization? Is it the type of fundraiser that the people that you engage would want to participate in? If your organization is for octogenarians, then it might not really be, a marathon as a fundraiser. Is it money or awareness that you're primarily seeking? You can do an event and not be as concerned with the financial ROI if what you're really looking for is to just those other types of things, those non-financial types of return on investment, the engagement, the good feeling, the building community. Can it be repeated or expanded? Like I was saying, if you try an event and it's successful, then next year, you don't have to decide right now, but next year, could it be expanded? Is this something that if your organization is multi-state or national, could you take that show on the road? Could other people do it for you? Does your staff have to go and do it? Or could you make a package of this, a template of this, and then you put it on your website, and anybody who wants to can do this type of event? Something like the Ice Bucket Challenge, anybody can do that. It could be a little more extensive. It could be a lemonade stand, something that anybody can do. And can it be repeated by your organization just as it is? And at some point, everything, is born, lives, and dies. So once something is starting to feel tired and old and you're starting to lose that excitement, you want to discontinue it. And I have worked with organizations who have had long-standing fundraisers or programs, and it's very important to take a critical eye to that. And there will be some people maybe on your board or your volunteers, and that's been what they've really put their passion into, and that will be a disappointment, and you might have people object. But you have to look at that and make sure that your fundraisers are fresh and exciting. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback. After you have your event, you will contact your volunteers, your participants, your donors, your sponsors, and ask them what they thought. Don't be shy and don't be scared, because all the feedback is generally, I would say, not going to be positive, but it's very important for you. And you might get a little defensive, and someone might complain that there was only diet soda and there wasn't Coca-Cola and there was only Diet Sprite, and you're going to get really upset, and you're going to wake up in the middle of the night and be like, Coca-Cola, Diet Sprite. But it's important to get the feedback, whether the feedback is deserved or not, whether it's big or small, positive or negative. That feedback is important. Now, when you do get the positive, those are great statements that are testimonials for your organization. And you can ask people, can I use your name? Or can I use this as an anonymous quote? Or, you might have already told people, if you attend our event, if you give feedback, we'd like to use your feedback, your testimonials for your organization for next time. So if you're going to repeat the event and you wanted the next year go bigger or get new sponsors, then you have these great testimonials from other sponsors or other donors who thought this was a valuable event. I'm going to repeat this, even though I already blew it at the beginning. I buried the lead, so to speak, is don't do it if you can't do it right. There's that Wham song, if you're going to do it right. Don't do it if you can't do it. There is nothing worse than attending a fundraiser that is poorly conceived, poorly planned, and poorly produced. If you go to an event and it's overcrowded, if there's nowhere to sit, if there's not enough food, if the sound system is crap and it's a concert, if the speakers are boring, or there's 10 million of them and you're sitting there for 3 hours waiting for your salad dressing to wilt your salad, there's just nothing worse, and it really just makes your organization look bad, and you're going in the wrong direction. What you need contingency plans. So if you're planning something outdoors, what if it rains? If your speaker cancels, I have been there. I can tell you, I have had famous speakers cancel on me at the last minute, and you've got 1,400 people coming to hear them. What are you gonna do? You can't plan for every eventuality, but you gotta at least try to troubleshoot in advance some of the bigger ones. Things go wrong. You can't really account for everything. Something's going to go wrong, whether it's big or small. Hopefully it's nothing big, but, and especially in terms of the people coming to your event, if things are going wrong, don't let them see you sweat. Don't let them see your board sweat, your volunteers sweat, your staff sweat. You want to explain to people who are running the event up front to try to handle things internally and try to handle things behind the scenes, because if it looks like you're in chaos, it just is just not a good look. Don't put all your eggs in this one basket. This is a different kind of a caveat. A fundraiser is one event or component of your financial plan. This should not be your financial plan for your organization, is to have one run every year. Unless you are a very small startup and this is how you're initially raising your capital. And I don't know that that's the best thing to do either. I can discuss that later, but I don't think you should do a fundraiser and have that be your only financial plan. I think you should not put really so many eggs in the basket that if this fundraiser went away next year, that you would be in dire straits. A fundraiser, to me, is not an essential revenue stream for most organizations. There have been some organizations that I know have built up huge fundraisers. You look at these, multi-day cancer walks, things like that, but I highly doubt that those organizations are so dependent on that fundraiser that the organization would have to dissolve if they didn't, if those fundraisers started to not be successful anymore. I think it would probably put a crimp in a lot of organizations, but to me, I think a fundraiser should be helpful. Obviously, you want it to make money, and that money is needed, but it shouldn't be your absolute core of your financial sustainability. The last thing I want to say is that the follow-up is critical. I mentioned that it's very important to get feedback. It is more important. It is the most important. And I've said this in other videos, to thank everybody. You thank your volunteers. You thank your donors, your sponsors, your staff. Give them some time off, or buy them a manicure, or just bring them some cookies or something. They deserve it. I mean, these events are hard work. And especially for the non-staff, for the volunteers who are coming to do the work the day of, who do the work leading up to for days and weeks and months, for your committee, if you have one, you really need to thank them. You cannot thank them enough. To me, this is essential. And I'm probably gilding the lily a little bit on this and making it, a little uber dramatic. But to me, I think that, I always say that this is my job. I do this. I love it, but it is my job and I get paid for it. The volunteers are doing it out of the kindness of their hearts, and I cannot thank them enough. And so I think that is just something to always remember. And that is really it. I mean, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them below. And I get some thumbs ups. Got a couple thumbs downs on videos. I don't know why. So if you want to give me a comment, I'm also happy to answer questions and go into a little more depth on any of these fundraisers. I hope you subscribe, and I will see you again soon.